We saw a movie. No, you guys, it was fantastic. You have no idea. It's just completely...
It was hardcore!
Henry. Although I kept wanting to call it Horrid Henry because that's a book series for children.
There's also a live-action version of it in the UK.
Yeah. So I really didn't know anything about this. I
showed you the trailer this weekend.
Yeah, before that.
Yeah.
Like, I know that Brad had gone and done, a midnight showing, and I hadn't watched it yet. And I still haven't, because now I was like, oh, we're going to go see it. I probably shouldn't watch it.
Yeah, my introduction was a movie called Hardcore Henry, and it's got a gimmick. And I showed the trailer, and like 3 seconds in,
huh.
Is that a first-person movie? And I was like, it's a first-person action movie.
And it reminded me a lot of there's 2 videos by this band where most of it is a guy running through and it says a secret agent trying to get like this little thing that lets you shift between areas. And apparently those videos are made by the people that made this movie, who are video game developers, according to my roommate. So, yeah. So we went on Half Price Night, not just because it was Half Price Night, because it was also Crazy Code Night, and we got a free scoop of Avengers.
One night a year.
Although it was not required, but it was preferred if you do throw any change you have into the bucket for.
Yeah, basically a charity arranged with the local cinemas. Ben and Jerry's stand for free cones and for donations. So,
so we donated some.
You got some Ben and Jerry's?
Yeah, I had fish food and cookie dough. So. Because that's what, when you clicked on this video, that's what you wanted to hear. What ice cream wheel.
Cookie dough for life. But this movie, I feel similarly towards this as I do towards Versus, in that it's technically a film, but it gives so little shit to the conventions of traditional filmmaking.
It felt like a very long music video. It felt like a very long YouTube video. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I had one concern about this film, and that was that it would make me seasick. Or motion sickness, which wasn't ever a problem for me until we saw As Above, So Below. And I experienced basically 2/3 of the movie as though I was visually impaired because I had my head down.
That was because that film was ridiculously busy for that film.
Yeah, and we sat really close to it, and I felt...
You were like,
I felt awfully ill. But, no...
Plus, As Above, So Below was just shit.
It was shit, yeah. But, like, this movie was fun. Okay, we saw Batman v Superman. I'm like, into my teeth. I gotta work on this thing. What am I gonna have for dinner on Friday? I guess I could make, like how you do. Like, when my mind starts to wander, I start to look at the set pieces. Oh, that's a nice chair. I wish I had a chair like that. Hey, can we get a chair like that? I've seen that at IKEA. Like that's...
There's no chair over there.
No, I'm being an example. But this movie, like, you're just kind of just like, you didn't have time to think. You're like, this is so magical. It's just so surreal, and you're just like, this is so much fun. Like, I don't think I'd go out and get the DVD of it and, like, watch it, over and over again throughout my life.
I'm gonna get the DVD, because I'm totally gonna do a mashup between this and the Prodigy's music video for Smack My Bitch Up. I'm gonna call it Hardcore Henry Smacked My Bitch Up.
Yeah.
And I intend to try and make it so that it exists inside the music video. So it's like, person begins the night out, suddenly kill everyone, and then at the end you discover they're actually a woman. Like in Smack My Bitch Up, which was the shocking twist in this mid-90s music video. That this person who ran out and, peed everywhere and threw up on people and, fondled, women's tits and everything, was actually a woman. Oh my god!
There you go. But yeah, so, I mean, it was just fun. Like, you could tell that everyone involved had fun with it. Like, what's your man, the South African?
Sharlto Copley.
Yeah, you could just... I think it was around the time of the musical number. Go with me here. It was around the time of the musical number, and I was just like, this is beautiful. Like, what is happening here? But so...
I was really excited to see Sharlto Copley in this, and from the trailer he was going to be like the assistant guy. And then he died like 2 minutes in. I was
so
crushed.
Upset.
I was like, you killed Sharlto Copley!
I was like, I was the popcorn. And then, 5 minutes later...
He's back again, gets killed again. There's like, oh, you're doing that? Are ya? I wasn't sure if they were... Because there's a lot of video game tropes and language and conventions used in the film. So I wasn't sure...
Press X to continue watching this film. Oh, Jesus!
I wasn't sure if they were going for the video game trope of having NPCs look similar. And that's what where my mind was leaping to, that all the characters played by him might actually be different people, but they look the same because of video game logic. But then you discover something else about it, and it makes sense in a film level. But I think that's possibly where they started. They wanted to use more video game conventions because there's so many of them. It's the trailer makes it look like it's just first-person shooters,
but it's not. It's so much more.
Yeah,
there were so many. I remember that level. This is gonna be really hard to beat. I'm surprised there wasn't a water temple part.
Yeah, or sewer level.
Yeah, you had to do like a thing with water levels.
But because you got, apart from that, you've got QuickTime events.
I say you as though you were there, but obviously you're just watching it, so.
But you got stuff that's QuickTime events without the buttons.
Yeah,
But clearly they'd be QuickTime events in the game, like he's getting on the horse and stuff. And they failed that QuickTime event.
The music, a lot of their budget must have been rights to get a lot of this music, because, like...
And doing the action, too.
Yeah, well, but, like, I mean, those were some pretty famous songs they had on there. Was that the theme from Magnificent Seven? When he's with the horse?
Quite possibly. But that film's from the 50s, so...
I know, yeah, but then they have Queen at the end. A remarkable application of Queen, I might add.
Shaun of the Dead had the same Queen song. And it had a smaller budget than this, I'm pretty sure.
I guess, just anyone can license Queen if you want.
If you have the money for it.
If you've licensed Queen, right?
I doubt the music was one of the biggest parts of the budget.
I know, but for some reason I just always think that
But it was cool, though.
It was cool.
But, apart from all that, for video game stuff, you've got the silent protagonist, you've got the person giving you missions randomly, like, go here, do that.
And you're just like,
and you go along with it.
Alright.
You got, towards the end, whenever he's doing more hand-to-hand combat, and it reminded me of, there was a game on the PlayStation 1. Not famous, it was an experiment, really. It was a fighting game like Street Fighter, but it was done with hand-to-hand combat weapons, so it was like medieval Japan, but it was done in first person, called Bushido Blade.
I remember Bushido Blade.
Yeah, and
I didn't even play it, but I remember.
It reminded me of Bushido Blade. So, there's like a hell of a lot of video game, I can't think of the right word, language, convention,
yeah, like there's a part where like the one guard walks this way while the one guard is walking in, you have to, and I was like, it's so bad at that level.
It's a film. Okay, like Versus was a film that was constructed from trying to look cool, and various tropes involving monsters and zombies and like killing and action. This is a film that's constructed from those elements of video games. I mean, they don't give a shit about any level of film convention.
You know what this is like? This is like he's an evil genius, Tom White. How he does the worst movie in the world auditions at conventions. And if this is news to you, Google it. He's got some up on YouTube, I'm sure, and it's amazing to watch. But he writes a script, either a fantasy or usually a sci-fi or like a genre one. And since he's a genius, he deconstructs the genre and makes it really funny. This is a Tom White script with less dialogue.
Yeah, played completely straight.
Well, yeah, played with a really good cast. Basically, and the thing is, if you laugh, then you're eliminated from the scene and someone gets to take your place. It's really fun. So totally go watch that.
And I want to make another comparison because I compared it to Versus. I also want to compare this to Avatar because this works.
The last Airbender, or the one with the tree people?
The blue one.
Oh.
Because like Avatar, this works less well as a film by itself and works better as an advertisement for what this kind of change in filmmaking can do. Like Avatar was basically an advertisement for updated 3D technology.
And first-person parkour is really cool. I'm gonna have a parkour dream. I'm short and fat. Okay, I'm not so fat anymore, but I have parkour dreams every so often, like every 6 months or so, and I'm like leaping, but I can like also float too, which is really great. So I'm gonna have like a super parkour dream tonight.
And this one is like an advertisement for the possibilities of a first-person filmmaking, which I love any sort of new thing in film. Like
it's innovative.
The Hobbit movies. The Hobbit movies were not the place to experiment with this, but I love the fact that filmmakers can use 48 frames per second. Wasn't good for The Hobbit. Bad choice. I'm glad it exists.
Speaking of frames per second, I did something really weird. The beginning of the movie, the main character wakes up and she's like, "Do you remember coming here?" But it tracks because it's a single camera, and I actually went. And she's like, "What are you doing?" Like, nothing. I was testing something. Because I realized part of what bothered me, and I know that you can't film through 2 cameras simultaneously and do stuff like that. It would look weird.
Yes, it would not come out right.
But I realized...
You could do it, you have to do it in 3D, so maybe this should have been a 3D film.
Yeah, but, like, I realized part of what was a bit disconcerting about this is because... And I know this because I'm nearly through cognitive psychology this term, is that your brain corrects for so much.
Yes.
Your brain corrects for vision blur. You habituate to your nose being there. Like, if you notice your nose there, you'll notice it for, like, another few minutes, and then it's like breathing. If you concentrate on breathing, you're like, oh shit, I have to keep concentrating. You'll forget. You'll just automatically start breathing on your own. It's just one of those things. There's so much visual processing, and I know this because my professor drones on about it forever. Well, yeah, there's so many cognitive shortcuts your brain makes because to process all that information would be, especially from the visual cortex, that would be a terrible drain on your brain's resources. So I spent a good part of the beginning of the movie thinking about cognitive psychology.
And while you were working that out, I
would be so pleased.
I was having a similar sort of, thought things, but not with psychology. Because during the camera sort of...
It's not really psychology, it's neurology if you want to get technical about it.
But the camera
if
shakes
you're a neurologist,
around.
write the show.
And I was trying to work out, I was going like, well, real eyes, obviously correct for a lot of things, and that's why the steady cam look wasn't quite realistic. And so that bothered me for a while. And then I realised, he's not looking through eyes. He's looking through robotic eyes. They said his eyes had been replaced.
Oh, that's true, and there's a part at the end where he pulls it out and you can see all the coaxial
Yeah, and that's why you had several parts where it was one eye was out and you get two shots.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. Is that feeding directly into his visual cortex? Because his visual cortex would have to be remapped. Like, that would have to be all cybernetic processing in there.
It's possible that
process that data.
The camera eyes are sending stuff into the original visual cortex, and it's coming out different looking.
Although he might have extra processing power for his brain.
That's possible as well. So that whenever I remember,
my professor would be so proud of me right now. I'm just saying. I did my essay on Bedeli's working memory model, but I really should have been talking about robotic eyes.
But whenever I remembered that sort of, I was like, okay, that's why the blur there, it's not corrected.
Like, I wonder how much of his original brain was left, because Hebbian plasticity, Hebb's law, neurons that fire together, wire together, why, if you practice something, you become better at it, you become, the neurons go faster, whereas synaptic pruning occurs for things you don't need, and they eventually they go away. But so... Hebbian plasticity would be constantly rewiring his brain to accommodate all of the cybernetics, depending on how much of his brain was left. Because I was thinking of the fact that you habituate, to having your view of your body, Like, how in Doom, if you were disarmed yourself, you ran around like this?
Yeah.
Like, you habituate to to this kind of stuff. If it's always there, the brain can ignore it. I don't know. This is not interesting to anyone else but me. So continue with the action.
The killer army of robots the guy's creating. By the end,
yeah, there's a killer army of robots. Sort
of cyborgs. Really weird. One of the things I do as a sort of a hobby when I'm trying to sleep is I come up with ways to alter and update sort of already existing fantasy universes.
Of course you do, honey. Of course you do.
And one of the ideas I have...
I go on my phone.
One of the ideas I had for Star Trek involved Federation creating a group of... Basically what they have here is volunteers who have been cybernetically enhanced to fight the Borg. They've got like Borg nano machines through them. They can't assimilate, but they're really hard to kill. They've got robotic parts. Almost all of their memory and brain has been removed and replaced. And like everyone's sort of... memory things of fighting and sort of abilities and stuff is sort of transplanted to the other ones as well, so all of them are as good as each other, and they've sort of done cybernetics to make the muscle memory and all work. So basically what they're doing in this film is this idea I already had for Star Trek in this, which I thought was very amusing.
Although one unfortunate thing about this movie coming out when it did, and their bad guy Akan really lost a lot of his punch because he was like a better version of Lex Zuckerberg from Batman v Superman.
Yeah.
He had the same kind of hair, the same kind of like crazy psychotic thing, but he was obviously a crazy psychotic supernatural supervillain.
Yeah.
So that made sense, and I was just like, oh, this is so bad because you got cheapened, unfortunately.
Now, Neil the Minion is
He's currently downstairs playing Dark Souls 3, so we didn't disturb him.
I think that the villain basically walked out of an early Metal Gear Solid game. Neil the Minion disagrees, but he's that sort of one.
Yeah. It had this, I think... And he had these, supernatural mutant powers. Like, a little telekinesis. But it was never really explained. What are you doing? Oh, you just ruined it.
Now there's less of the top of the head.
There was a Wilhelm scream.
Yes, there was.
I was like...
And there's so much Chantal Copley.
I'm getting better at that.
Yeah, you're noticing little camera things and everything.
Like when people run footage backwards and make it look like it's running forward.
Yeah.
When there's audio-visual unsync.
Did you notice the bits in the bits where, without static, where they were, marrying two shots together?
No, because I'm not trained. I'm not usually looking for things like that.
Okay, well, anytime...
I just figured they do it all CGI.
No. It's actually... I've actually done tricks like that. You know the YouTube video... The YouTube trailer I've got for Hagan? Watch it.
The one with Colin?
Yes.
No, I always mute that when I go to your page because there's always like, I just have to read it. And I'm like, quiet, Colin, be quiet.
Well, if you watch that, there's at least one, possibly two edits in that, even though it looks like a thing. Because, like they did in this film, I had bits where the camera was there and then it quickly sped to another place. Mm-hmm. And you can easily hide a cut between, if you speed the camera, if you move it quickly.
We just hit a cut just then. You didn't even notice it.
No, I could have. If I moved the camera quickly, I could.
We're actually in 2 different rooms right now.
I could.
Doing like that kind of like, thing that's...
But yeah, watch that thing on my YouTube channel and you can see anytime the camera sort of skits from Teddy to me and back again, there's at least one cut in there, there's probably at least 2.
But I think that people should go see this, and I'll tell you why. It's not like it's some kind of like, Citizen Kane-esque, groundbreaking cinema experience. It's just fun. It's fucking fun. And you should go see it because you can say that you saw it, you're like, that was really weird. It was surreal, or I hated it, or it made me puke, or it was fun, or it was cracked out. I don't care, but like, support them. Give them money. Because it looked like it was all Russian folks.
Yeah.
From the credits, they all, every name ended in O or V, so. But, I mean, that was just really fun. And things should be fun. Like, I
One
like
complaint.
What?
The CGI was a bit dodgy.
I was on a big thing there.
Sorry.
Movies should be fun. Like, we have to go see a movie tonight. Is sometimes how I feel like, I'm going to see Batman movies.
Not all movies should be fun.
Why did you say that name?
Love you, mother.
No, but it's just... some movies just look like such a chore, but I realize that a lot of the movies we see, and we see low-budget movies, we see horror, we see so many, and it's so rare to find a movie where you can... Pirates of the Great Salt Lake was like this, where you could tell they just had a fucking blast. They had a ball with this. Turbo Kid was another. You could just tell that every single bit of this, even the parts where it was very plagiaristic, very serious, you can just tell everyone involved just had a motherfucking great time, and after it was done, they were like, wow, that was horrible, that was so hard work, but oh my god, we had fun. Like, I bet that's what it's like making a trauma movie,
Trauma is apparently very hard.
Yeah,
there's some guys who have done one and then refuse to do more. Apparently there's a bunch of people who are fans of Trauma who go in and take part in making one of them and they decide, I'm not doing that again, it's too much.
Maybe not Trauma, but... Like, I mean...
Trauma is a labor of love.
Like, I know that Doug and Rob don't actually watch our stuff, but that's what another, if they ever did another Channel Awesome movie, that's what needs to come across, that we had fun. Whatever else, we had fun. We want you to have fun watching it, and this is
from what
great.
I've heard, none of the Channel Awesome films, except for the Brawl, none of them were much fun for the guys makers, because... Mm-hmm. Well, the first one, it was Nevada.
It was in the desert, for Christ's sake.
But it was in the middle of winter, so apparently it was incredibly cold, and they still got sunburned.
That'll happen, yeah, that'll happen.
It was apparently very unpleasant filming. The second one, they lost half their time, and there was raining and winding the whole time. Who were we
talking to? Was it Dodger? Who was a production assistant on that?
I don't think Dodger was. But they basically, if you listen to the commentary or the making of, I can't remember which it is, for Suburban Nights, basically they came this close to shutting down the thing, spending 24 hours writing a half-hour mystery thing set inside a house and filming that instead over 2 days.
Fair enough.
But they had some okay weather, they went out and they started filming, and that's why everything is so damn rushed in that, because they had literally half the time they planned for, and that's like 3 hours long. And then to boldly flee, I don't know how Doug managed it without killing himself, the amount of work he put into that, but because this is supposed to be the funerary sort of thing for the nostalgia critic, it's very, very dour and unfun. It's got jokes in it, but tone-wise it's very unfun.
I suppose it's rare when you can get that to happen. I mean, I might be wrong. They might have had no fun whatsoever, but it feels to me, a cinema watcher, like the people, everyone involved in this had fun. And so,
Yeah,
it's just, that makes me feel good when I watch things like that.
Sometimes people think, the audience thinks they had fun when they didn't. Like, a lot of times people comment about how much it must be fun. Clearly I'm enjoying making, filming stuff for episodes. When I actually really hate filming videos.
I thought it would be
camera.
really great to come move over here and help you out, but I really hate it. I work most of the weekend because I'm in uni a lot of the weekend. I can only work certain hours a week. And a lot of times she's like, I'm coming over to film an episode. I'm like, oh, I'm 10:30 to 7. I'm sorry. Well, you know what? I'll get your takeaway when I get home. And I just come home with a takeaway and I don't have to do anything.
But yeah, even just for me, it's I much prefer editing, looking at
what
comments,
is that?
and
Then
writing.
that must be a really good talent to have. To bring across that this is great and we all enjoyed it and we're giving it to you because we had fun with it. Without that actually having... If you understand what I'm talking about, comment below because sometimes I don't understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Just saying.
But yeah, this is a bunch of fun, and it's really interesting from a technical standpoint. Like Birdman, you've got the thing where you're trying to, if you're into that sort of thing, you're trying to see where they hid the joints, because there's bits where you can see like static, and you can see static in the guy's field of vision, which is where they obviously hid some stuff. But there's other places too, like where the camera moves quickly, or there's bits where they have heavy use of CGI. Like near the start, they had a bit where this thing came down from the ceiling, and
I'm not done making faces about Birdman yet.
The ceiling opened up with a CGI sort of like type thing, and the CGI was terrible. And I could tell the only reason it was there was to hide a different shot connection, because they moved up there, they cut to a locked off shot, they had CGI there, and then it came down, and then it was a different shot. I'm Captain Disillusioning this shit.
Like dentist.
Yeah, when it was coming down, yeah.
I didn't know that was CGI. I thought that was
no, the thing itself was practical. The sort of the thing, the opening thing below was CGI.
Right, okay.
But
I was like, that looks like the thing at the dentist.
Whenever it went to cut to a locked off shot, where it wasn't actively moving, it was this is a locked off shot.
Hi, friends.
Whenever it's not moving,
Oh,
whenever the handheld locked off. Locked off is a term that can be used basically for anything with a tripod.
In the industry.
But some of the CGI was pretty dodgy. The other practical stuff was great. The CGI though. Ooh.
Why did you say that? Because I can't think of any CGI time that was dodgy. Although you look at things.
Do you remember the bit when they entered into the hotel and the final baddie building?
Mm-hmm.
We both thought to ourselves that Sharlto Copley would get killed outside this building, and then he went inside.
Yeah.
And then there was a bit where they had a bunch of guys all like standing around in this one place, and then they blew them all up. It was like a still shot of everyone blowing up.
So many times though.
There was just one bit where it was completely locked off. It was just one shot looking up at it, and the explosion went like that. And the CGI looked dodgy as fuck.
It was in slow motion.
Didn't matter. It looked.
Your lads on the stairs, right?
Yeah, it looked dodgy as fuck though.
I didn't think it looked dodgy.
So there's that. There's the thing, sort of retracting and then coming down. So the CGI wasn't so great, although part of the reason for CGI is to make you think that it's not CGI, so I'm pretty sure some of the better CGI there didn't even register with me that it was CGI. That's kind of the point of CGI. If you can tell it's CGI, that means it's not very good. Unless it's
something that doesn't exist in real life, like a dragon.
Well, yeah, but they're still trying to convince you that it's a real dragon using some sort of special effect.
But it's not a dragon because there's
It can't be a dragon, yes. Right. They're trying to convince you that it's not CGI, though.
Right.
At best, CGI monsters...
But you know that it is.
No, because they're trying to convince you that it's actually like a practical thing.
It's me, Smog! Ha ha ha, Bilbo! Oh. That was just the Battle of the Five Armies, as presented by me.
But,
come on, it's time to go film Sherlock! I wanted to work for Jim Henson when I was little.
Lol.
But so yeah, I mean, 2 thumbs up just for what it is. I mean, when someone tries something new, it can either be an incredible, fantastic thing, or it can bomb horribly. But
the budget for this, I'm guessing, is about $25 million. I'm guessing.
Is that good or bad?
That is incredibly low end for an action film.
But it's better than like a lot of the people that we know that made movies.
Well, yeah,
okay.
we don't know anyone who's made a film for $25 million.
No, but like we know people that have made movies.
If you want to make, if 25 million is like the low end of getting a film with certain name actors, like this one has Charlotte Copley and it has Tim Roth. Tim Roth did 2 hours of work.
Who's Tim Roth?
Tim Roth was the baddie in Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes. He was in Pulp Fiction. He was in Reservoir Dogs. He's in a bunch of different things. He nearly played Snape. He was beaten by Rickman. He was like the younger Alan Rickman. He's the English guy constantly playing baddies.
But it was kind of good that Alan Rickman got the part.
Well, yeah, Rickman was good. Yeah. But Tim Roth, he's English guy constantly plays villains. He was the baddie in the Incredible Hulk movie from Marvel. But he played the guy's dad, who was like, "Go on, you little pussy," and then that guy. So he did like 2 hours work on this film, and then
the best line in this movie is, "You are half machine and half pussy." Eileen was like, "Best line in the movie."
But like,
it's said by a guy right before he jumps down a ripcord, like off a building.
I'd compare this to because realistically, in the way that filmmaking is done right now, you cannot get an 18 or an NC-17 rated film that's going to be higher than maybe 35 million, budget-wise. Okay. Because it's just a way that the film industry works right now. So you got this. This was 18/NC-17. Another example of this sort of thing. Yes, it was.
Oh, it was 18 rated, it wasn't it? Oh, in the States, it would be NC-17.
Because these are the mirror sort of certifications.
I would have thought it would just be released as R in America.
Well, maybe it did, but usually 18 is NC-17. Oh. They sort of...
NC-17 is like one step below X. That's like all the porns. I'd never seen an NC-17 movie, like, in my youthful, innocent days. So you guys want to know, the first PG-13 movie that I ever saw was Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and I went to see it with my friend Becky Slosky. Hi, Becky, if you're still out in the world. Because her older sister took us, and I was staying over her house the night, and my parents were not consulted on this, and I got gummy bears, and it was fantastic.
But another film that reminds me of this, where you've got the little action movie that could, which was,
Is that what it was called?
No. Just the 18 rated, low budget, kick the ass, has a couple of name actors, and it was Dread, or Punisher Warzone. These sort of good action films that sort of get under the radar, somehow made in English language, which is wonderful.
Yeah, like this wasn't one of the ones like, it's made foreign and dubbed. No, I believe they were really speaking English.
Yeah, but it was probably a Russian film.
Yeah, because everyone involved was Russian. Like, even the horse was Russian.
Yeah.
There was a tank. It's just go watch it. I mean, if it's out near you, go watch it. You won't regret it unless you get motion sick. In that case, I'm sorry. It's not my fault if you puke.
The random as fuck nature of the enemies that sort of appear at random parts. That's another video game
spawn,
thing.
It's like Dragon Age, they just spawn in a way. You're like, how the fuck?
Yeah, and you had the bits where they were attacking the lab, and you had... They said...
like, there's only 6 cars. There's 36 of them tops, and like 50 squillion show up.
Yeah, they kill 50 of them, and then suddenly there's another 100. So they're there spawning in. So much video game sort of language. I need the word for this. Language, trope, whatever.
Convention, yeah.
It's the
schema. It's
pieces of video game logic and thing transplanted into. It's like how it must have felt whenever.
It's like when you pick up a sniper rifle and just know you're just going to be able to use it in a game. And of course, as long as
the snipering bit reminded me of the part of Left 4 Dead where you have to do the sniper mission.
And you're like, oh sure, you know what? I was
Not Left 4 Dead.
I was an accountant. I was an accountant before the zombie apocalypse, but yeah, I can, with the precision of a Marine sniper, sure, you know.
Yeah, it was Last of Us style, but I must be feeling right now similar to how the first people to see a film musical must have felt, because you're seeing the conventions of stage. Stage opera existed. Or seeing songs transplanted onto the medium of film, because previously,
you mean the ones like the Fred Astaire kind of?
No, the Jazz Singer was, I believe, had songs as well. The Jazz Singer was the first talkie. Came out in 1927.
Yeah, I know, and there was a re-release on DVD, and there was controversy.
Well, yeah, the main character is sort of, he's a New York Jew who is managing to find his voice in away from his, from bigotry by going on blackface.
Basically, when the Jazz Singer was released on, Ultimate, digital recreation DVD, there was a lot of controversy.
Yeah.
Because he appears on the cover of the movie poster in blackface.
Yeah.
Which is incredibly, horribly offensive. So basically, as it was released... with just him in silhouette in front of like a stage light, and a lot of people were upset about that. There was controversy, so
Yeah, the blackface.
I figured it was just probably too offensive for me to ever admit to having watched it, and I didn't want to get in trouble. So
Blackface is kind of seminal to the plot of The Jazz Singer. So, but people watching that, their minds are being blown because they're seeing someone talk in film, and then suddenly they're singing, and they're seeing this stuff from a completely foreign art put into film, and it completely expands what the art is capable of. I mean,
that must have been like a whole new world of Hebbian plasticity. Like, imagine you're at cognitive maturity back in the day, and there's moving fucking pictures now, and now there's moving fucking pictures with sound. Yeah. That must be like endorphins firing all over the
We've just
goddamn
experienced
place.
something similar now, because what we're getting is video game stuff.
Exactly similar.
We're getting video game stuff.
We've seen moving pictures before.
Yes, but we're getting video game stuff transplanted into film.
So it's a wee bit like that, but it's not as
possibly
it's
not
not
as
as different as like going from I'll put a nickel in the Nickelodeon and see the horse running around and the little picture that goes.
Just imagine what films are going to be like in 50 years' time. It's going to be practically we might.
But I'll be old.
If we get frozen for some reason, and then we wake up in 50 or 100 years and try to watch a film, apart from the obvious problems of technology being different and cultural references and language being slightly different,
I'll be old enough now.
We will probably find films really hard to follow.
That's totally on fleek.
We will find it completely.
I don't know what on fleek means. I just hear people say it on Twitter, so I gotta confess to you.
But we will find them really hard to follow, because 100 years ago, what were films? I'll tell you what films were.
1916, so
yeah.
It was like.
So it was a couple of feature films had existed.
Was the one with the piano music? Dun dun
Yes.
dun 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 dun. Oh no!
Feature film.
I'll tie you to the railroad track, my dear.
Depending on what you think the first feature film was. So that's pre-feature film, but it's still that trope existed until later on. But.
Did anyone ever get tied to the railroad track?
Yes.
Like, was that Ruz?
Yeah, in like Keystone Cops type things.
Like like for reals.
Oh, in real life? Yeah. Possibly.
If you've been tied to the railroad track, write the show.
But the movie...
I have to Google that. I know you're trying to make a point, but I want to talk about refrigerator death. But, remind me afterwards. Make your point. I love you.
Basically, 100 years ago in film, depending on how you define the feature film may or may not have been invented. But there's one that is generally considered as possibly the first feature film was Dante's Inferno, which was an Italian film that came out in 1911. So the feature film at best was 5 years old. They hadn't even invented... Okay,
you're going to hell.
Speech hadn't been done. Songs were not done and thing. They hadn't even invented the montage.
The Russians invented the montage. We found this out from a YouTube video.
Well, I knew that.
Well, I didn't.
They hadn't invented using cross-cutting for narrative. They hadn't invented doing sort of... Basically, stories were done like one scene and then it went to the next scene. Everything was connected.
You're giving film students a boner.
My point is...
I don't know what half the things you're saying are.
Film has evolved incredibly in the last 100 years. And people who watched the earliest silent films in 1916, if they came and saw any film made today... their minds would be blown.
Probably,
They would probably find it hard to follow because the cinematic language has shifted so much. And if we were frozen for some reason until 2116, we tried to watch a film, we would find it wholly confusing. Imagine,
no, I believe you.
Imagine trying to show an 80-year-old Hardcore Henry. They would find it really hard to follow.
They might get too excited and hard.
Well, they would also find it really hard to follow. I mean... a lot of the references in our video game stuff, which is we get. The ones younger than us are going to get it even better than we are because they're going to have been exposed to FPSs from out of the cradle. Honey, because
baby's first Call of Duty.
Well, yeah, my nephews played Grand Theft Auto and played first-person shooters when they were 3.
You know what the best thing was her nephews playing. What was it? It was like one of the newest NBA titles for Xbox One or. It was at my brother's sister-in-law's wedding, and they had a gaming room because and two little boys from West Belfast, East Belfast, where Belfast they're from.
They're near Belfast, not actually from
not
Belfast.
As far as Loch Lake and Cookstown, but near Belfast. So they're playing basketball. Oh no, shoot for the goal! Oh no, why is he doing that? Why can't my man jump? Oh no! And they had no idea. Move down the pitch, move down the pitch.
They had no idea how to play basketball.
That's not a pitch, that's a court.
They had no idea how to play basketball in real life or in the game, and they had no idea even for the correct terminology.
And then
it was really funny.
And then I made a 90s quip. I said, white men can't jump. And they're like, that's really racist. And I was like, no, see, it was a movie, and then it was, see, in Robin Hood Men in Tights, which was a Mel Brooks man, that white men can't, never mind. Why are you so racist? Is it because you're American? Keep playing, keep playing.
It was like a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old from Northern Ireland, no concept. But FPSs were born, depending on when you think the first one was, either in the mid-80s. Well, there was also something called Dinosaur Hunt, which
I've
was
never played that.
it was a game
sorry.
in the late 80s where you were in a maze.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was called Dinosaur Hunt, and there was a T-Rex after you, and you had no gun. The entire objective was to stay away from the T-Rex.
If you want to call that person view, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm really old. No, but hold on a second. What about the original Maze screensaver?
This predated it.
Oh.
The thing is, when it comes to genres, it's almost impossible to concretely work out when the first one is. Yeah. Like, the slasher movie, like I make the point in 13 Women, which you voiced, literally.
13 Women?
Was that...
That gave me such a sort of...
The 13 Women from...
Put a link in right there, because I worked really hard on that as me, so... Just go click on that, because I worked really hard.
But 13 Women is the earliest film that I can find which could possibly be in the first slasher movie. And because it's the origin of genres is so nebulous, you can't really tell 100%. You can just tell, this point, there was none of this genre. At this point, there was definitely this genre. At some point, one of these possible films may be the start. But...
Well, gaming is very ubiquitous, and that's a problem because people are always trying to nail down what exactly gamer culture is.
I'm not talking about culture, though. I'm talking about the primary influence from gaming on this film was FPS.
Right.
And FPS...
But honey, ecological systems model, like, culture ties into everything. You're saying, oh, these tropes, these conventions, but there's a certain subculture of humanity that will innately understand.
But that's... Gamer culture would be the behavior of people.
I had a social psych lecture this morning.
See,
so.
I'm not talking behavior of people. I'm talking about the conventions of the games themselves. Mm. It's like the difference between discussing the language in a poem compared to a bunch of people who like reading poems.
But poetry, like first person shooters, do not happen in a vacuum. If a first person shooter is in the woods and nobody's around to play it, is it still happening?
Yes. If there's no one playing it, but it's there, there it is.
It's not happening, though. It's just a cartridge or a disc.
The point is that the people that the gamer culture, the people who play the games, do not create the games. The game is created by people. So a certain amount of them become game creators, but not all of them. So I'm concentrating.
These guys were. That's what Neil said.
I'm talking only about the game's mechanics themselves.
Okay.
So. This is a type of language that is completely foreign to film, and trying to work out... The people who grew up their entire life with the FPS there are going to be even more attuned to it than we are, because it happens at some point in our lives. Yeah. We predate the FPS.
We do.
However, I got the feeling that at least one person who's watching this, and congratulations if you're still watching.
And go to bed, it's late. Oh, come on, you got to go to school in the morning.
Will be younger than the FPS genre, and that sort of person will have more exposure to it while growing up, and therefore will be sort of more in tune with it. I don't know what the actual word for this is, than we are. And since we've had it most of our life, we've had it for most of our life, so we'd be pretty damn in tune with it.
It is, I guess, an innate schema. I don't know. I'm just making up terms now.
I'm trying to explain something which I got a feeling is a pretty involved sort of thing in multiple fields, and I don't have the words for it.
Yeah, I get like that. Something like it's a thing. You know what I mean? But yeah. But no, I understand. It's more. They'll have a more innate understanding. It's like how if you hand like a kid would never think about a rotary phone now. If you handed a small child a rotary phone, they would probably know it's a phone because of the receiver, but like...
I saw a video clip of a 2-year-old attempting, reading with a magazine, attempting to flip it like an iPad.
Yeah. I saw one years ago, and I think it was called something like My Toddler Thinks a Magazine's a Broken Tablet, because they show the kid reading Cosmo, or looking at Cosmo, and, swiping to, and then pinching, and, and then it fades out, and it fades back in, same toddler, same clothes, with... a magazine tries the same thing and looks at broken, oh no, broken, and it was so cute, and I was like, oh my god.
But that's an influence. It's showing how items that surround us influence how people see things. Like, I'm thinking about doing a renegade cunt on this subject.
It focuses your abilities. No, that's the same thing that I want to research. And this idea that you have technology that progresses at a rate that has outstripped our ability to epigenetically adapt to it.
Well, my one is, it's similar. I'll explain it. You've already heard about this. Yeah. Basically, I'm thinking about...
It's a really long episode.
I'm considering doing a renegade cunt about internet-based horror movies. And how I got this theory, hypothesis, that people of our generation will find it almost impossible to find a horror film about the internet to be frightening.
It was. Unfriended was so funny. You know what was frightening? What frightened me the most about Unfriended? All these kids with Apple products, with expensive devices. And I was like, that's scary, because they see that as the norm. Where are my expensive devices? I had to pay for everything I've got.
And my logic behind this is that for
no, the ghost is in the Facebook source code.
For our generation,
it's taken over my space.
The internet and computers are still a novelty.
The ghost is making angsty posts on my live journal.
So the idea that horror can be based in the novelty is on some level ridiculous. I've racked my brain. I can only think of one internet-based horror film that's any good, and that's Cairo, the Japanese film. Please make suggestions if you think, otherwise. But, so I got the feeling that the next generation, the ones who grow up with...
Wasn't there one called Fear.net? I remember seeing the trailer for that.
It was terrible.
Okay.
Fear.com. But,
I'm pretty sure it's Fear.net.
Fear.com.
Okay.
I remember because the...
Fear.org.
The website was called fear.com.com.
Oh, no. That's horrible.
But I got the
Do you remember back before, like when you would see a trailer and there wouldn't be a website on it?
Yeah.
Just saying.
But in I don't know how long it will take, but a generation that goes after us will be capable of finding horror movies about the internet frightening.
They would, those little shits.
No, it's just because of the cultural
hanging around a shopping center.
It may well get to the point that the only way you can actually make a horror film that, unless you got the extreme exception like Cairo, where a horror film about the internet is any good, is if the person who made it is not only a good horror maker, but they grew up in the generation where it's not a novelty.
Yes, it's just
generic.
A lot of times in my notes when I have ideas about something, I started abbreviating CMPI, which stands for Cognitive Maturity Pre-Internet, because I don't know, I'm starting to notice differences in cognitive perspectives in people that reach cognitive maturity pre-internet versus our generation, which was kind of straddling that.
Yeah. And
cognitive maturity is about 26, scientifically speaking. And then people who will reach cognitive maturity post-internet. It's really, I don't know, it's like something to look at.
Yeah. And the, okay, give me an example of this
Sorry if I'm being too pretentious. A fan that thinks I'm being pretentious.
For this concept, the film Ring, the Japanese version, I don't care about the American one, or even the Korean version, or even Ring Sadako 3D, which was shit. I'm talking about the original one by Hideo Nakata. That is a horror film about a cursed videotape. Now, for our generation, VHSs were norm. They were not novelties. They were something that existed, and they were accessible the whole time. That's why they could be used in a horror film for our generation. You show Ring to someone who is maybe 20 years older than us, and they would find it laughable because VHSs were a novelty, and I got the feeling that in their subconscious they would remain a novelty.
Yeah.
So the idea of it being cursed or ghosted somehow is ridiculous.
Well, I remember seeing a trailer for a horror movie called One Missed Call, which was I think like a haunted cell phone or something. I remember thinking that's so stupid.
But I think that's a Korean film. So please, in the comments, let me know what you think of my sort of weird hypothesis here.
I think we need to have a sit down, or like stream or something, or record with.
Do a lesbian talk or something.
With Jacula and Horror Guru, because I'm sure they would have a lot of.
And they tell me I'm wrong because I'm always wrong.
No, you're only wrong sometimes. When you pick fights with our friends on Twitter.
Sometimes our friends are wrong.
Let it go. It's not important. No, but someone's wrong on the internet. I have to fix it. I'm like, oh, please. I've been yelling at her over Twitter DM from the airport on airport Wi-Fi. Would you stop yelling at our friends? Our friends are friends. This is why no one likes you. But anyway, so it's been about 45 minutes, and I'm sure
that's a bit more than expected.
Have sick of us. But yeah, if you have any views, just put them in the comments, you know.
Yeah.
I think I might link this. I really don't usually link our videos to my personal Facebook, but I think I might link this on my personal Facebook.
Okay.
Because I want to know what people our generation thinks. So if you're watching, if you came here from my Facebook, you can comment there.
Oh, another trailer we had today. Friend request, which looks like an even worse version of Unfriended.
It does. I couldn't tell if it was supposed to be in the same universe as Unfriended.
I think it probably wasn't, but it's using a lot of the same trope. The only notable thing about Unfriended was that it wasn't done entirely from her perspective.
This is what code looks like. This is what this looks like. And
yeah, it's like satanic
it's like
evil
the Matrix
code.
kind of thing. I'm like, seriously? She's in the code.
Not a ghost. But, Unfriended, the notable thing about that was that the entire film was her desktop, which I thought was fascinating from a technical standpoint.
Yeah, okay, I think I said this in the Backseat critique. You know, innovation-wise, I see what they were doing, and it was a new thing, and it was neat. It was definitely neat.
And I'm glad that that exists now, because for years I've thought I would like to see a horror film based on webcams. I mean, ever since I saw The End, the episode of Urban Gothic, which was a zombie apocalypse, half-hour long, filmed on webcams, done in, like, the year 2001, which was really good. Then there's the earliest webcam horror film, which I found after seeing it Unfriended, is called The Collinswood Tale.
Oh yeah, you were telling me
It's
about that.
not very good, but it's probably better than Unfriended, and it was made like 10 years earlier. So, anyway.
So that's, I mean, ringing endorsement from us. Go see it.
Lot of fun.
If you can't go see it, get it on DVD, have a watch, have a few beers, you know, get in the zone of personally parkouring your way around some Russian city.
Yep.
So yeah, so we'll see you next time.